this is my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I'm wearing one of my fancy booktube hats, and today I'm doing a book haul. I got 11 books, and this is a lot for 1 month, even for me. One of the reasons for this is that there was a big book outlet sale where you get a certain number of books and you get a discount and also free shipping, and it was just a really good sale, so I placed an order. And also 4 of these books fall under the category of books that I have already read, but I've purchased copies of them. So I'm going to start with those. The first is actually going to be totally indulgent for me because it's something that I very rarely do, if ever at all, and that is I've purchased a nicer edition of a book that I already own in mass market paperback, and they had it in hardcover, and that's Sunshine by Robin McKinley. This is the original cover art for this book, which is the same cover art as the mass market paperback I have. This mass market paperback that I have, though, I bought it used to begin with, and then I've read it a couple of times, and then it was mauled by a cat. And it's just not in very good condition, and for a book that I think I'm going to want to read again, maybe several times, this just isn't going to hold up for multiple more rereads. So hopefully I'll be able to pass this copy along by foisting it upon an unsuspecting friend or something, and I will have this very pretty, glorious hardcover that will last for the rest of my life. I hope. Anyways, after I placed the order, I was worried that, I would regret it. So far, I haven't regretted it. I've had this, sitting by my bed just so I can pet it every once in a while. This is one of those books where I can just open it up to a random page and find something that reminds me why I like this book so much. Ah yes, here we have Sunshine confusedly wondering what to wear when you're expecting a visit from a vampire. It concludes, I went to bed wearing my oldest, most faded flannel shirt, the bra that had looked all right in the catalog, but was obviously an escapee from a down-market nursing home when it arrived, white cotton panties that had had pansies on them about several hundred washings ago and were now kind of mottled gray, and the jeans I usually wore for house cleaning or raking Yolanda's garden because they were too shabby for work even if I never came out of the bakery. Food inspector arrest on site jeans. Oh, and fuzzy green plaid socks. It was a cool night for summer, relatively. I lay down on top of the bedspread and slept through till the alarm at 3:45. He hadn't come. Sunshine, everybody, the one and only vampire book that I absolutely adore. And next from Book Outlet, I have one more Robin McKinley book that I hadn't owned. I think I have incorrectly stated on this channel before that I owned all of Robin McKinley's novels. Then I realized afterwards that that wasn't true. There was one that I did not own, and it was The Outlaws of Sherwood. This is my least favorite Robin McKinley book. I don't dislike it. I guess I'm just not such a huge fan of Robin Hood stories in the first place, so there was nothing in this that really grabbed me. So I was a little disappointed in this when I read it and got it from the library, but it is a Robin McKinley book, and it's the only one that I don't have. And so now I can say that my Robin McKinley collection is complete. Because sometimes it just feels important to have a full collection of your favorite author's work. So next I have 2 books that are going to complete out a loose series, of which I own the 3rd book, When the Sea Turned to Silver. I loved this one a little more than the first 2, which I got from the library, but I didn't own those first 2, and these are Starry River of the Sky and Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. Where the Mountain Meets the Moon comes first. Starry River of the Sky comes second. When the Sea Turned to Silver, which I already owned, comes third. These are middle grade. They are companion novels. They are based on Chinese folklore, and they contain lovely, colorful page illustrations. The illustrations are done by the author. She's also an artist. These have lots of stories within stories, and the stories within the stories of these books kind of connect together a bit. So when I finished this one, I felt like I wanted to have the other 2 to reference back to, and I didn't. So now I do in fact have a full set, and they are lovely. This one I got in that same Book Outlet order, and then I was able to find this one at a used bookstore not long after. So let's proceed with the last 4 books of this Book Outlet order, shall we? So first I have The Blade of Fortriu by Juliet Marillier. This is the second book in her Bride Chronicles series. I think it's a trilogy. Anyways, I have the first one because I found it at a used bookstore. I've been wondering where I'm going to go next with Juliet Marillier's writing, because it was fairly straightforward when I was reading both the original Seven Waters trilogy and the Blackthorn and Grimm trilogy, that what I was reading of her books was whatever was next in whichever one of those trilogies. And now I've finished both of those, and I have a bunch of her books that aren't the continuation of the Seven Waters series. So I want to read some of those before I continue with Seven Waters, the extension books. And basically I know nothing about this series, the first book of which is The Dark Mirror, but now I at least know that I have the first two. And then I also have Wildwood Dancing, which is one of her YA books. It has a sequel, but I believe it works as a standalone. It's a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses. I really want to read that one. And then I also have Wolfskin, which is the first book in a duology called The Light Isles that, like these, I know absolutely nothing about. So if you know anything about that series or this one, if you've read them, I would love to hear your input on whether or not those are worth prioritizing, and if so, which of those two series. What I always say about Juliet Marillier is that she seems to be a really reliable author for me. I never absolutely adore any one of her individual books, but I always like them. Next, I have Bone Gap by Laura Ruby. I know very little about what this book is actually about. I know that it is YA magical realism, and it has won some awards. I think this is about a magical town of some sort, and there's a girl who goes missing. Anyways, I just really want to read more YA magical realism, so this appeals to me. And also, I'm just intrigued by the fact that there's a bee on the cover, and I want to know why. Nothing in the description of this book explains why there's a bee on the cover. Next, I have a middle grade book, and that is Castle Hangnail by Ursula Vernon. I like Ursula Vernon. I want to read more of her things, for young readers, for old readers, all of the things. This is more of a text-based book than her Dragon Breath series, which are like half text, half graphic novels, but it is illustrated by her in her very distinctive style. And this just looks hilarious. This is about a girl named Molly who shows up at Castle Hangnail and declares herself to be their new witch. And she isn't quite what the evil minions of the castle are expecting, but you know what? They're gonna go with it. I think that's what this book is about. This looks like, I've said before that I absolutely fail at seasonal reading, but this looks like a perfect Halloween book for me because it has all of the spooky spooks, but it doesn't look like it's actually scary. It looks hilarious. So we'll see if I actually manage to read this around Halloween. Knowing me, claiming I'm going to read this on Halloween will generally result in like this being what I end up reading on Easter or Christmas, so we'll see. This was a scratch and dent copy, so it cost like practically nothing, and it's the most damaged scratch and dent copy I've ever gotten from Book Outlet. There's a big rip on the dust jacket, but I taped it up on the inside and it works just fine. It's not a big deal. I don't really care. And then the last book I got from the Book Outlet order was Tigana by Guy Gavriel Kay. This is massive. I got this because, honestly, because Katie from Katie Loves to Read loves Guy Gavriel Kay and recommends him all the time, and I can't keep watching her videos and not read something by Guy Gavriel Kay. This is a standalone. It's supposedly one of the better places to start with his books. He's known for fantasy that is historically based. His fantasy worlds very strongly resemble real life times and places, and it's mild on the magic. And I had a choice on Book Outlet from several different editions that I just chose like blindly based on, I guess, the cover image and the price. And I ended up with what turns out to be the Canadian edition. I'm quite happy with it. It's got this nice buttery cover in the terracotta color, and I've since seen the American edition in bookstores, and I like this better, so yay. Next, I have a couple more used books. One of them I got at a used bookstore. This is The Ladies of Grace Adieu by Susanna Clarke. I'm currently reading Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and loving it. This is Susanna Clarke's short story collection. I believe all of these were published during the time that she was working on Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and then this is the bind-up of them. And I was super pleased to find this when I did, because I had just been looking for it online, and I think it's out of print in the US, so I was going to have to buy it internationally from Book Depository or something. And not only did I find it, I found it in something that is at least relatively close to being a matching edition to my edition of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. This is a UK edition. This is an American edition. They aren't quite the same size. This one's a little taller, but they are both red and they have the same font and design style. So that was fortuitous. Yeah, close, so close, but no cigar. Anyways, and then the last used book I've got here was one that I found at a thrift store, and that is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. I told myself I was not going to buy this book because I have another book by Kelly Barnhill that I haven't read yet. I wanted to read it first and then decide if I was going to read this book, but then I found it at a thrift store for $4, so. And it's a nice hardcover. It's in pristine condition. This is a middle grade book, and I've heard some mixed things about it, but primarily things that make me think I would like it. So I'm very excited to read this. I think it won the Newbery this year. And then last but not least, I had a Barnes & Noble coupon that was going to expire, so I was like, why the heck not? I went to Barnes & Noble and picked out a book. I got The Curse of Chalion by Lois McMaster Bujold. I've been reminded lately, every time I watch someone's YouTube video where they're talking about anything by Bujold, and she's quite prolific, that I really need to read specifically her fantasy, because I think those are the books that I'm most interested in. This is the place to start with her fantasy, and it is probably wise of me to own a copy because my library doesn't have this circulating in print, so this increases the chances of this actually happening for me, practically speaking. So those were all the books. I'm not going to stack them up again because I've scattered them as I filmed, so it would be a little messy. But let me know if you've read any of them. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there are other books you'd recommend. Anyhow, I hope you're all having a lovely day. That is all. Bye for now.